Welcome to the Leaders on Shopify podcast, where merchants, app partners and agencies share what it really takes to significantly scale your Shopify brand. So today we're going to be interviewing Neil Campbell. Neil is the Chief Growth Officer at Smol, which is a fascinating brand that's disrupting the home detergent market and making the world a better place. So we have a great chat with Neil all about his journey through Shopify and then off Shopify, which is an unusual one for the Leaders on Shopify podcast. So I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode and really understand how scaling a D2C business requires a different tool set, but how Shopify can help you scale to a certain point until you realize your D2C model might be too big. So welcome back to Leaders on Shopify. I'm John Readman, the host of Leaders on Shopify, and I'm really pleased to say we've got Neil Campbell, Chief Growth Officer of Smol. Thank you for joining us, Neil.
Thanks, John. Yep, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. So for those who don't know you and don't know Smol, could you do a quick introduction of yourself, a bit about your background, and then get into who are Smol and how big Smol?
Yes, so I am the Chief Growth Officer at Smol, which means that I look after all things to do with sort of acquisition, so getting new customers in the door, anything to do with sort of customer engagement. And so once we have kind of customers, how they interact with us and how we make them kind of more valuable. And that is all kind of underpinned by a data function, a data analysis function that sort of really brings customer insight about, what behaviors do we actually want to encourage, and therefore a little bit of the sort of product design process of, okay, what do we actually commercially want the offers on the site be and the kind of product management to be. For the last few years, I've sort of always worked in direct consumer subscription sort of style businesses. So I've been at Smol for the last 4 years. Prior to that, I worked at Moneybox, who are a sort of fintech kind of wealth management app. Very kind of similar in the kind of customer dynamics in that you're signing up a customer and then you're kind of managing that relationship with them over time. And prior to Moneybox, I worked at Naked Wines. And again, Naked Wines are very much a kind of pioneer in the world of sort of D2C subscription. Obviously a very kind of specialist service, but again, you are contributing money and then you're kind of running down that balance to sort of buy wine from independent producers. And so, yeah, for the last few years, I've always kind of worked in that sort of Series B, Series C size kind of business, direct to consumer subscription. If you go further back, I've done various other startups and things. I worked at Amazon for 4 years in the UK. I used to run computer software and then sort of small consumer electronics for Amazon.
Yeah, so you're ideally placed to help a D2C brand scale. I'm a happy customer of Naked Wine, have been for a long time. Great brand, great product. And for those who don't really know Smol, how would you describe Smol in like a couple of sentences? And why should they sign up?
Yeah, so Smol is a disruptive direct consumer home cleaning brand. So we supply cleaning products to people directly to their homes. So bypassing kind of supermarkets, posted out directly. And those products are designed to disrupt the cleaning industry and make it a lot more planet friendly, make it a lot more convenient, and really kind of provide those kind of products in a way that is not having to make the trade-off. So when we sort of entered the market, there was a lot of eco-friendly kind of products, which cost, double or 3 times as much. And the real kind of thinking behind Smol is that that should be a very easy switch to sort of do that. And so the products are, firstly, we're kind of focused on laundry capsules and dishwasher tabs, but then a whole range of sort of products beyond that, sort of cleaning sprays and fabric conditioner and stain gels and washing up liquid. The product range has really expanded over the years. And so within that, we're trying to be more sustainable by being a lot less plastic, a lot less unnecessary chemicals, a lot less water being kind of shipped around the country, which obviously leads to lots of kind of CO2 savings, and then a lot more kind of support of kind of communities. So, we run lots of schemes where you can donate a wash and help support sort of hygiene poverty initiatives.
So it's not just a highly growing, successful business, it's also doing some good for the planet, which is great.
Yes, well, planet and communities, and for people's kind of personal health as well. It's really a kind of company that's designed with a kind of impact at the core of its mission, and that sort of shapes a lot of what we do and how we develop the products.
Yeah, no, excellent. So what we're here to talk about today is your journey on Shopify and then off Shopify, and sort of how D2C brands face challenges, especially I think with the subscription models, because you're purely a subscription model. So it'd be really useful if we go back to the sort of early days. Where did Shopify fit in? How did it sort of work? And I suppose also linking in there, what other apps were essential for you to build your business?
Yeah. And so, I've been at Small for 4 years. Small itself has been running for about 8 years. And so some of the early journey started before I was there. But essentially, like a lot of companies trying to start up sort of e-commerce kind of businesses, Shopify is a very obvious choice. It's just absolutely kind of brilliant kind of platform. It's so easy to get started. It's very customizable. If you have any kind of special use cases, the App Store is amazing in terms of, pulling out those use cases and giving the kind of functionality that you want. And it's a real community. So, obviously in terms of developers and, expertise and everything, it's a really kind of great platform. For Small, we are 100% subscription focused. And so every kind of product that we sell is designed to get customers on subscription, because the entire idea of it is your cleaning products and your home cleaning needs, they're very regular usage. So,
Yeah.
I might put my kind of dishwasher on once a day because I've got loads of kids, and someone else might be different to that. But within our own usage, it's very regular. And therefore, it's very naturally kind of, a product which suits subscription. And so in that, in our kind of development of the kind of product, we use Shopify initially because it's an e-commerce, engine and for all those things that I said. But core for us was actually the Recharge app. So Recharge being a sort of, Shopify kind of plugin that is manages subscriptions very well. So comes with all that functionality. It allows you firstly to kind of set up a subscription, and secondly to sort of move the dates and, change the cadence and skip a delivery and things like that. And so for us, we were very much, yes, we're on Shopify as a platform, but the key app for us from the kind of start was Recharge.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that we are very, very kind of subscription, part of it is the natural, obviously, cadence of the product that I kind of talked about and usage of the product, but also it allows us to kind of run a business where we can really think about the acquisition costs of the customer and then how that kind of turns into a lifetime value. And if you're on subscription for these products, then that lifetime value becomes a lot more predictable and a lot more kind of
Yeah.
certain. And so, for us, it actually, and everything's kind of related because, for example, we acquire customers, and one of our great things that we built a lot of the kind of business on was this idea of a free trial. So essentially, if you come to us and you want to try our laundry capsules, a lot of people don't know, how do they smell? That's very kind of personal to people. Do they actually clean? You're saying it's planet friendly. I've had lots of experiences with stuff that cleans in the past, but it doesn't clean very well. And so the cornerstone of our business was this free trial. And essentially what it is that our laundry capsules, and we do this across lots of products, but I'll talk about laundry capsules, come in a 24 pack, but we do a 9 capsule pack that you can get for free, and all you do is pay the postage. And so it's a very kind of compelling offer for that. But obviously, as you can imagine, that is something where if we would just give that out with no commitment, then the economics of that would be very hard to kind of maintain. But in a world in which everyone who takes that free trial, unless they decide to cancel and decide that the products aren't for them, is moved on to subscription, then we can make those sort of economics work. And because that was the sort of acquisition offer, and because that's how we kind of wanted to run the business and it suited the products, it really meant for us 100% subscription. And therefore, when we designed the e-commerce platform, it meant Shopify, but also Recharge as a kind of key partner
Yeah.
for
And I'm impressed that you only put your dishwasher on once a day with children.
that.
Right, that's the biggest takeout I've got from that. It's like, wow, yeah, you must have a very big dishwasher or very organised at stacking it. But if we sort of, how big did you sort of get on Shopify and Recharge, and what were the sort of telltale signs where you thought, hang on, and were these sort of commercial decisions from platforms? Were these technical decisions? Were they? What was the sort of point and size where you sort of thought, hang on, this might not get us to 100 million?
Yeah, and well, let's talk about the evolution a bit of that, because
Yeah.
you're sitting there with your sign behind you. It says leaders on Shopify, and I'm like, we're not on Shopify.
Really interesting for people going through these journeys. And I suppose yours is a bit of a unique use case, is you're subscription only. You're not selling individuals. So this will be super interesting to other subscription only, but also there might be commonalities of like, at what point does an out of the box solution that's an e-commerce product not fit my business? But yeah, if you share your sort of evolution of how it all evolved and unwrapped and unraveled.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you kind of start with where we are now, which is that we're essentially a headless kind of website that we've kind of developed ourselves, and but we still use Recharge. So we still use Recharge almost independently of Shopify as our kind of subscription engine. And the kind of question is, well, how did we kind of get there? And so for us, it was really a case of, the development of the products. So the first thing you got to remember is that we sell about 15, I think it is, kind of different sort of products, and but the really core of what we do are laundry capsules, dishwasher tabs, surface sprays. They're probably count for about 80% of our kind of revenue, and a large proportion of our kind of customer signups. And the reason why those products are really important to us is that they are very regular usage. They, people use them very kind of consistently. They're using them every day, and therefore they're great subscription products because they build up a habit. If I take something different, one of our products is stain gel, for example. We do it on the subscription, but it's not a great acquisition product because I send you a bottle of stain gel and you think, well, it's going to take me 6 months to get through that, and therefore it's not great. And why that's important is that when we sign up customers and we're trying to acquire them onto the site, it's a case of, well, I want to get them hooked on a product which is a habit forming kind of product. And so, unlike a lot of websites, and Shopify is set up to support this, obviously, where obviously the front of the site has every single product that you can possibly buy from that website. In the case of Amazon, millions. Um, it has every single product that you can buy, and you build a basket, and then you check out, and then maybe as part of that checkout process, you sort of say, oh, maybe I will subscribe to some of these things. Ours is actually designed differently. It's really designed to say, let's get you onto a core subscription. And on the product pages, on the product detail pages, there's no option to sort of say buy one off. It is purely you're taking this as a trial or as a starter kit. So, because some of our products, for example, the sprays, we need to send you a bottle and a spray because that's the bottle that you keep for life. So it's really a kind of starter one that then becomes a subscription, and the subscription is the tabs. And so what that kind of means is, for us, the sort of site is a little bit upside down in the sense that the front end of the website, so the one that a new customer who's never been to Smol before only sees 5 or 6 products, because those are the ones that we believe are, yes, I would subscribe to those, are key kind of habit forming kind of products, and they're ones that I think I can offer a very compelling offer on to start off with. Once a customer then becomes a subscriber and has sort of used the product for a while, the actual main shopping portal is in the sort of back end, is in the sort of my account section, where you're going to go, oh, here's all these other subscriptions that you can get from Smol. And so that sort of setup of the website, so because we're subscription focused, because we're trying to form habits, it kind of means that we were sort of against the grain a little bit in terms of how we were using Shopify. Because as you kind of know, out of the box, Shopify is list your products. Here's your kind of search box. Here's how you kind of manage your catalog. And we were sort of saying, actually, we only want the full catalog over here behind my account. And actually, we want sort of highly merchandised, convince people to kind of subscribe. And so what we sort of discovered as we were, going through that kind of journey and sort of building it, is that we were building more and more kind of custom development on. And so we were using kind of, Shopify kind of less and less. And so because the My Account section had to have a lot of shopping stuff, that sort of, came out of sort of Shopify first. We were still running the sort of the new customer sort of aspect of the website on Shopify, but then increasingly we were sort of developing things on the kind of on the front end as well. And that's what sort of led us down the route of kind of going, at some point we've got to make the change in that. The other thing that sort of changed for us as well was, as a business, in the early days, we only offered laundry capsules and dishwasher tabs. And so the average customer had sort of 1/2 subscriptions. As the range of kind of products increased, we have more and more customers who have 3, 4, 5 subscriptions. And in that world, the actual subscription economics become a lot more important. Because, for example, if I'm sending you, let's say you've got 4 subscriptions with us, the laundry capsules might come every 24 days. The dishwasher towels might come every 40 days. The sprays might come every 6 months because they're very compact kind of thing with 6 sprays in them. The washing up liquid might come every 2 months. Those individual subscriptions, because you've got four of them, it starts to make sense for us to kind of group those into one box and sort of say, look, John, every month and a half, because of the amount of stuff you're getting, we're going to send you all this stuff. And it might have 2 laundry packs, one sort of period, one dishwasher pack and one sprays. And then the next month you might get washing up liquid or something. It's slightly different. What that meant is that we were doing a lot of custom development with Recharge in order to kind of work out that kind of grouping. And so it was a lot of stuff that was just getting beyond what Shopify could support.
And I suppose that's great as well from your point of view, because that potentially reduces a bit of storage costs, because now I'm storing a lot of the stuff at home, and also reduces distribution, also reduces CO2. There's loads of great reasons why you're doing that. And I suppose how helpful and involved have Recharge been with this? Because you must be, I don't know if you're the only people doing this or if you're one of the leading people doing this, but surely for them, they're looking at you going, hang on, there's a whole separate business in here. And there's a whole thing is, rather than just being a Shopify app, should we be plugging into other people's headlesses?
Exactly. And I think that's, you should definitely get the Recharge guys onto your podcast as well to talk about that, because that is very much where we kind of went. And so what we discovered, I think we were Recharge's second biggest customer in Europe. And I don't know if that's in terms of revenue or volume or whatever, but we were that sort of level. And so because we were at that level and they were trying to build out their kind of European business, so we did a lot of custom development with them, and they were very happy to do that in terms of, okay, how do you want this kind of grouping to work, and how do you want that to change the underlying subscriptions? Because when we, if I take your orders and kind of go, well, you've got your laundry capsules coming and I'm going to bring all these other orders forward, in the background, I have to change all those underlying subscriptions and sort of say, well, John hasn't skipped that one. He's brought it forward, but I got to move the date of it back so he doesn't get it in 2 weeks' time or something. And so they were doing all that kind of custom development for us. I think they have definitely gone down a path of trying to sort of build a bit of a sort of independent sort of business.
I'm now getting my head round where do you recognise the revenue? In which months? If I'm getting a box every 2 months, but it has all these different products that last different months, that's like a real interesting challenge for you and the finance team to go out which month is which revenue.
We recognize the revenue like most businesses when we charge the customer. And so we're not going to take any credit risk on whether or not you get your laundry capsules early and then don't pay us, John. So we charge you early, but that becomes a customer experience challenge, because you're sort of saying to the customer, look, this is a great service because you get one delivery, because it's in one box. Firstly, we're having more impact receiving CO2 and delivery. We can also offer it as a track delivery service, and given, we were using Royal Mail sort of large letter a lot, and it's become very unreliable. So having a track delivery service was much better for the customer as well. And so it is a customer experience challenge of saying, look, we're gonna bring this stuff forward, but it's okay. You can still trust us, because subscriptions at their heart are very much about trust. It's like saying you can bill me anytime. So
do you incentivize them to put it all together, or is that just what's happening?
So we built the mechanics of it first, i.e. the ability to kind of group the orders and kind of bring them all forward. And we had kind of customers doing it on a manual basis, and it worked very well. And we have now essentially incentivized them, because we got to the point where Royal Mail charges were going up so much that we had to start charging delivery fees. And we've gone for a very simple introduction to delivery fees, which is basically it's $1.99 per delivery, which means that if you group them together, you save all these kind of charges. And if it goes over £20, then we just ship it to you for free. And so essentially we're sort of saying, look, there's delivery fees. We really hate raising kind of prices, but the reality of it is these orders really need to be tracked, and the underlying costs are going up. But actually we've given you a great way to kind of, resolve and not have to pay those delivery fees by sort of saying, click this setting and we will automatically sort of, group these orders together for you.
That's super interesting, and we're definitely going to get the guys from Recharge on, so and we can hear their sort of evolution and story. Because, but what would be really interesting, because I suppose your world is acquiring new customers, so it'd be really interesting to understand what's been working in the past, what's like the go-to, always on, what's we can sort of get into sort of what's always worked, what's becoming harder, what are you looking at in the future? So we'll talk about sort of acquisition channels, and because that's your sort of bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on acquisition for us, we are very reliant on Meta, so Facebook and kind of Instagram. And the reason why that is that if you think about it, no one is sitting there thinking, how do I make my, you know, kind of laundry capsule buying or my home cleaning buying more planet friendly and more convenient. It's just something that they go to supermarkets. It's part of their kind of weekly shop. They don't know that there's a sort of different solution. They actually don't know some of the sort of impact that they're, that industry is having. And so, the great thing about Meta is that you can get into people's consciousness and you can drop in with a sort of little problem unaware ad that sort of just highlights the sort of problem to them and gets it in that sort of awareness. If people were actively searching for it, then we would be obviously in kind of Google search and doing a lot more there. The fact of the matter is that 98% of the traffic that we take from Google, they mention the brand Smol. So they already kind
Right.
of
So
are aware of us and sort of, and
and
so
what's the sort of split Meta without sharing numbers, but what's as maybe as a percentage sort of Meta and versus Google? What would your sort of split be?
very roughly, probably about 70% and about 15%, and then about 15% other stuff. So 70% Meta, 15% Google, 15% sort of other things that we kind of do. And that's, even within that kind of Google, it's kind of interesting if you think of the sort of the awareness funnel. So from customer who comes from totally unaware to I'm desperate to buy your product, I'm going to convert right now. Google operates right at the very top via sort of YouTube, because I can get into your kind of consciousness and sort of say, oh yeah, by the way, you're watching this video, kind of have you thought about this? Meta then operates in the sort of the middle part, which is, let me show you repeated ads and here's a solution and eventually here's an offer. And then Google operates right down at the bottom, which is I heard of that thing Smol, I've decided to buy, I'm going to go search for it and I'm going to convert because I'm a sort of highly converting kind of customer. And so just the nature of our kind of product is, we are kind of sitting in that sort of middle chunk quite a lot. But off the 15% that we do spend on Meta, quite a lot of it goes on YouTube as well, because it's more the kind of
Yeah,
top of
yeah,
funnel
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And in terms of, and do you distribute Small anywhere else apart from your website?
No, pretty much just on the website at the minute. We still operate in France and Germany as well, so we do a bit of international stuff. And we have done sort of tests in the past on kind of retail. So we were in Sainsbury's for a couple of years. We're actually going back into retail, so we're kind of redoing the strategy and that and kind of working out. Learned a lot the kind of first time around, and now we're kind of going back, which I think is a much better kind of proposition, having sort of tested the waters before.
And is the idea and I suppose how do the retailers feel about this? Because if the idea is I go into Sainsbury's or Tesco's or wherever, I pick up my Small, and then I Google Small because I want to find out more about it, and then I'm thinking, oh, I'll just get a subscription.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic on a number of levels, and this is some of the learnings that we kind of took from our kind of first sort of adventures in retail. The fact of the matter though is that we are in a category. Let's just take laundry detergent, and sort of say that is 95% bought in a supermarket.
Yeah, yeah. So you're missing.
Now,
You're only getting 5% of the profitability potentially, or you're
yeah,
trying to convert me, who gets it in my Asda home shop, to
yeah,
get it as a separate thing.
yeah. And so the fact of the matter for us is that if we want to be credible and if we want to have an impact and sort of change this as a kind of category, it's really important for us to be in retail and to sort of make that happen. And there will always be customers who it is more convenient for them to pick it up off a supermarket shelf than it is to work out a subscription and manage that and things like that. So it really just depends on how busy they are, what they're used to, and things like that. And so what you sort of find is that you have that kind of relationship with the kind of retailers, and I would really kind of categorize as every retail in the country sells Amazon gift cards, and that's the sort of like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
some
yeah.
some occasions where you want to shop online, and there's some occasions where you want to be in a supermarket, and I think there's a real acceptance of that.
But and then in terms of, so we're all getting bombarded at the moment with like AI this, AI that. It'd be really interesting to understand, certainly around acquisition, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it's like creative. A lot of people. So if you'd asked me, Neil, 6 months ago, is the AI creative good enough? I'd have probably said no, it's a bit average. I've been playing with, well, there's a big footwear retailer we work with. We managed to prove that putting legs in shoes sells more shoes. Whereas if you put legs in shoes and put it in a natural environment, you will sell more shoes. They can't necessarily afford to do the photo shoot for every single pair of shoes with legs in. So we managed to demonstrate not just to be the split test to prove that, but then we managed to build something and help them to roll this out and then selling more shoes. So I suppose where in your mind does AI fit in? Doesn't it fit in? What if you're happy to share? Have you tried that worked? And where do you see the future of sort of, and particularly the one I'm excited about and nervous about is YouTube or video AI, because I think a lot of the challenges retailers face is the cost to advertise on YouTube isn't necessarily the cost of the media, because you can prove the media is working. It's the cost of producing the asset.
Yeah.
So where do we sit with all that AI creative?
Yeah, but let's break it down. I think I'll answer the question, but I think you got to put it in a bit of context, which is what is the ad production kind of process at the minute, and then what bits can sort of AI help with, and what bits is it going to help with a lot more of in the future. And so we've been through this sort of really a revolution in about the last 3 years of sort of advertising, specifically kind of, meta advertising, where we went from a world where you didn't need that many ads, but you had to really work on your targeting. So you're doing loads of like for like audiences, and you're really kind of, working out your exclusions and your bidding strategies, and you're manually adding and removing ads and sort of targeting, and all the targeting was happening sort of in the kind of account management. Then obviously iOS 14 came along, the ability to kind of target got a lot sort of worse. Everyone thought that Meta is really going to struggle with this. Apple's really kind of, struck a blow. And, but Meta have really sort of invested very heavily in the sort of machine learning part of that. And the sort of, remember when we used to call AI machine learning?
Yeah,
Is,
yeah. My data scientists still do.
yeah, and so, but the real background of Meta is that what it's saying is that you don't have to load lookalike audiences. What we'll do is that we will show your ad to a very small amount of people, and then when we get a response, we'll work out what people are responding. We'll show it to more people. We'll very kind of quickly find out who's going to respond to this ad. And that led to a sort of world where we went, okay, you just need lots of creative. So we just need to kind of, put lots of creative out there, get loads of influencers or kind of content creators to do loads of creative. We'll throw it all at the wall. We'll find which ones kind of stick. And then that world has sort of evolved and kind of gone, yeah, but in an AI world, you can get lots of slop. You can get lots of just very generic kind of things. And so Meta's then acting on that and sort of saying, well, you give me all these ads, but they are not really different and they're not differentiated in any way. And almost what you have to do is go back to first principles and sort of say, look, what is the customer persona that you are trying to target? And
Yeah.
by persona, I'm not talking about demographic. I'm not talking about sort of 25-year-old people who go to the gym who are buying sort of training shoes from your client. It is, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, and what is the kind of core for it? And for us, for example, we have customers who are very concerned about personal health. So gut health, is there residue left on my kind of dishwasher plates? Does that affect my gut? How does that affect my kids? Microplastic, etc. And so we have to make ads which really talk to them in that sort of situation. And so it's really about the problem that they're kind of solving, not the fact,
Yeah.
because you could have someone who's 25 who has that sort of concern, and you could have someone who's 37 with 3 kids who has that concern. The problem is the thing that's the same. And so you've really got to anchor the ads in that sort of persona, but then you have to really talk them at firstly, where are they in the decision cycle? So problem unaware, problem aware, solution aware, ready to convert. But you also have to talk to them as a who they are. So they are the mum, and here's my kids, and I've got to feature them in the ad, and they've got to resonate. Versus I'm, 25, I've just left university, I'm thinking about my own personal health and some of the choices that I'm making for the first time that aren't being made by someone else. And so what you sort of find is that you start from these personas, and you'll have several of them across any kind of business. I then have to think about the variety across where they are in that kind of problem. I have to talk about the variety in terms of who's featured in that ad and does that resonate with the person. And then I've got to think about how do I deliver that message to them. Am I stopping people in the street? Am I doing a podcast style interview with a founder? Am I featuring just the product? Am I doing UGC testimonials, all that kind of stuff? And if you work that out from what I've sort of said there, I've kind of gone, you've got lots of personas, you've got lots of stages of funnel, I've got lots of different people who are featured, and then when I've got lots of formats for the ad, suddenly I've just described about 300 different variations that you could
You
have.
almost need like your own media agency inside your business who are
Yeah.
just churning out content and ads.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a huge task.
And that's really, and that's where the kind of AI bit comes in. So if you kind of go, well, that is the system now, and that's what you've got to do in order to kind of find the customers and find the resident, find the audiences. What that sort of means is that there's a hell of a lot of production going on there. And so there's a lot that AI can do to help with that kind of production process. So generate me ideas, generate me scripts, give me different wordings, take all this customer feedback that I'm giving and write stuff that's in their language, that sort of stuff that's along the kind of process. Then obviously when you produce the ad, it's, one where you kind of go, clearly, depends if it's static visuals, photography. If it's photography, what angles do I want? All that kind of stuff. If it's video, do I want to do variations on the video? And so clearly there's a role for AI in doing the sort of the variations that might talk in sort of different ways. And so it's involved in that kind of production process, and it's involved in the sort of kind of the actual creation of the ad as well. So, how do I get to the point of having a script and something I'm ready to shoot? But then also, once I have lots of stuff, how do I do it? But it's a really interesting question for us as a sustainable brand. And within that process, we are very, very early in the kind of journey. And one of the reasons why is that we're very cautious about it, because we're all about saving CO2. And as everyone knows, AI is very
Well,
computational.
I was talking at an event yesterday, and I think the elephant in the room is AI going to fix the climate crisis and unlimited energy, or is it just going to accelerate the end?
Yeah.
And that's the big debate is, and I think nobody really knows for every query you ask how much energy is or isn't that using. I suppose you could flip that on its head, saying, well, we didn't need X number of people to go to this location, and we didn't need to use this many vans and this much electricity and post edit. And I think smart people, Neil, could probably argue it both ways, I imagine.
Exactly. And those are the kind of things that we've got to work out. And before we kind of dive headlong into it, clearly it's not a simple answer. It's not AI bad, lots of carbon. As you say, if I don't have to, if I can cut out one of my shoots a month where I'm not driving 20 people to Bristol to find a nice house to kind of do a shoot in, then yeah, there's clearly a kind of trade-off there. And that's one of the things that we've got to work out. But clearly there's a kind of process for it to be paid. And obviously there's also a community angle as well, because we use actors in shoots,
Yeah.
we pay production people as well, and just kind of cutting them out isn't
I think
isn't an obvious choice.
an interesting compromise that I've seen from a big the fashion retailer, but they're famous for their handbags, and they taken us all baby steps. They still do the shoot, but they do the shoot. They still do all the model shots, but they're now just doing photography shots rather than also video, and then they're using the photography to generate video. And
Yeah.
actually, if you'd have asked me 6, 7 months ago, I'd have been very nervous about that because I'd have thought it would destroy the product.
Mm.
But actually, it's really good now. And it's getting to that point. So again, they're still keeping the model employed and they're still having an element, but they're just reducing a bit of the friction in the process and the cost in the process to then get an extra asset. So I think we're all learning, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, and you'll know this. I'm sure you've done enough with AI to know it. Is that AI gets very, very useful when you give it a lot of very specific inputs. And that could be from the level of a very, very long kind of prompt that you're, doing to kind of develop a document or something, but also in the creative space, if I give it lots and lots of my current images and how I think about stuff and how I do it, then you do get the sort of outputs, which are A, high quality, and B, very flexible. So take that very simple example of a product shot. Don't just shoot it for the one image that you're going to put on your website, shoot it from like 6 different angles, because once I have that, the AI can give you any angle that you want. Oh, you want the bottle to now spin end over end. Oh, great, because you've
I've
got
got
6
9
shots.
shots. I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really good advice and tips for that. And what do you do? Because you do obviously a huge amount on Meta, Google, probably a bit of TikTok, all the other online channels. What do you do out of home? So do you do anything offline, either TV, magazines, billboards, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it is the kind of continual question for someone in kind of growth and marketing is like, okay, at what point do I go on to these other channels? And we've done stuff in the past. We've done, a bit of out of home. We've done a bit of TV stuff. The kind of like we're always testing. Part of the kind of growth mentality is you can do this stuff, but just make sure you're setting up as a proper experiment that you can learn from, not just, oh, we should do TV, spend the money. Um, in general, though, we've sort of concluded that there's actually a hell of a lot of runway already in kind of meta. Like there's a lot more that we could do on our kind of current setup. And we're much better off getting that creative process really working well before we then sort of go out and get distracted. Because
But if you've
one of
got
the
the
things,
machine working, just put more fuel in the machine rather
exactly.
than go and
And,
try and
and
build a different machine. Yeah.
exactly. And before that kind of, really work out when you've properly saturated that. And I would sort of say we've been on a bit of a journey this. 2 years ago, I would have sort of said, oh yeah, we're very close to kind of saturating kind of meta. CPAs are going up and everything else. It's getting harder and harder. We've got to diversify. We've got to do top of funnel. We've got to do Unilever, kind of Procter & Gamble style brand advertising. But actually, having really kind of studied it, we've kind of gone, actually, there's a lot more kind of runway, and there's a lot of successful kind of D2C companies who are kind of breaking through that 100 million kind of barrier, and they're actually not going massively diverse. They're still kind of making it work within their kind of core channels. Obviously there's a kind of development within that, and maybe they're doing a lot more on YouTube and they're kind of doing that sort of stuff. But it's very easy in marketing to get distracted by the new shiny thing that you hope will sort of bring growth, rather than sort of saying, but this engine, have we 100% kind of tuned it? And is there more in it, essentially?
And do you ever, and this is me just thinking out loud now, but my kids are really into wild, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so do you ever think, well, hang on, that they're sort of in a similar space, similar world. Do you ever sort of partner with people who are selling a similar concept of a product, better for the planet, this, that, and the other, similar sort of personas, and where you go, we'll cross-pollinate between us, do something together because we're non-competing, but we're targeting the same people.
Yeah, so we do a lot of kind of partnership stuff. Wild have an absolutely kind of brilliant business. What we really love about their business is that they have really anchored it in kind of scents, and so fragrance and scent is it's a real personal thing for people, and it's something that they get really excited about. And it's what you realize even in laundry, we set out to build a very compete with Persil. There's one SKU. It's really well priced. It's on the same price as Persil or Fairy, and it's a much better for the planet and much more convenient. And so what we've realized since then, though, is that no, fragrance is really personal to kind of people, and it's really kind of interesting. That's something that we're really looking into. Now, with Wild and a kind of brand like that, we absolutely love them. I think they're an absolutely brilliant brand. We study brands like that all the time. We peer to peer, we kind of, just swap notes with them, all the other kind of D2C brands. There's actually a really good community around kind of D2C of people just sharing those kind of ideas. When you get into the sort of partnership world, though, you kind of go, okay, what's the right way for us to kind of partner? And there's kind of a real scale that kind of goes from one end, very simple, quick integrations. Do you want to appear in our newsletter? Do we want to run a competition where we give away your stuff and you give ours? Do we want to do a sort of, there's various services like Savendis and Taviso that will do a sort of gift with purchase. So as
Yeah.
you check out on Wild, you get offered from Smol. If you check out in Smol, you get offered something from Wild. You can do those sort of levels of sort of partnerships, and they're really good for kind of like testing the water and sort of, building up those kind of connections. Where you kind of get into the sort of collab sort of world, where you kind of go, okay, right, how do we really sort of partner this together and sort of make it really tight? That's obviously a lot harder, because at that point you're starting to change packaging, you're trying to do limited edition runs, you're adding products to the website that are only going to be there for a couple of months, that sort of stuff. And so that world is generally more reserved for the kind of stuff that is, yeah, this really makes sense. Like the fit is really tight, and it really makes sense. The one I really loved, actually, you and I both know Stu McDonald at
Oh,
Life,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing kind of peanut butter. They have had so much traction out of their collab with like chocolate peanut butter with I think it's
Yeah.
Knoops, the kind of
Nukes, yeah,
chocolate
yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of stuff that's like, okay, it's really flavor focused. It's two very premium brands coming together. It's a limited edition that gets their core customers excited. that's really cool. That's when the collab
So
stuff
do
makes
you
sense.
almost need to find an ethical sort of perfume brand that can suddenly my clothes just smell of my favorite aftershave?
Yeah.
That would be quite cool. But I don't know if are there sort of ethical green friendly perfume brands out there? And probably,
Don't
but
know, but that's the kind of thing that would make sense for us. And I think there's
yeah.
a lot of stuff in the food space that makes a lot of sense because there's just two quality kind of flavors kind of coming together. I think in a world in laundry, it's a bit harder because we're a bit more commodity focused, but we are moving in a kind of fragrance kind of led way. But yeah, it's really
Well,
interesting, and
what
we do
about
work with them.
because you often see either hardware manufacturers recommending, so like I don't know, Bosch recommends, or even clothing recommending, saying wash your Patagonia with this, or is that just too hard and you've got enough to be going after anyway?
Yeah, it's all stuff that we can look at. We do partnerships with what do you call it, retailers or manufacturers of kind of washing machines and things like that. One of the main areas we do that in is we have a thing called suds in schools, which is where we put washing machines into essentially primary schools, such that parents who don't have access to either laundry detergent or laundry machines or just the costs of kind of running those machines have a way to do it because hygiene poverty is a very important thing where kids are kind of turning up in the same school uniform for months on end and they're getting bullied and sort of withdrawing from school life because of it. So we actually partner with kind of manufacturers for that as to, okay, we got to put these machines in, we want to buy your machines and we want to kind of partner in that while we supply the detergent. But yeah, it's something that we're always kind of looking at, and obviously there's a long kind of lead time on them because it just takes time to kind of put them together and make sure it works for everyone because it's going to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah, no, well, that's what a cool idea that is. I've got loads of stuff. That's amazing. And then I suppose you mentioned you respect and look up to lots of other brands. Who's sort of like, who are the people you're like, when we get there, we're going to be as good as them?
Good question. You got to be careful of that because everyone's got a different business model. Everyone
Yeah, yeah. Well,
understands that.
I suppose either personally or for small, who are the brands you look up to who are doing it really well?
Rico, I think well, Wild, who you mentioned, we really like, because we just think they have a really good relationship with their kind of customers via the different, uh, the different scents and everything that they've kind of gone for, and actually they do both the scents and then the cases as well. So the fact that it's kind of quite personalized, we really like the fact that they've sort of taken their time over their kind of product development. So they've built an amazing business on sort of stick deodorant. And I've only recently kind of got into things like their hand wash or their shower gel refills and the kind of roll on deodorant and things like that. So we really like them. I think we also look to sort of people in the space who have sort of been there a while and have built very sort of, long-term businesses. So Gusto, for example, I think are
Yeah, yeah.
a very good example of that, about how do I kind of keep customers live and things like that. Now, for us, Gusto, they have a lot of kind of packaging, and therefore it's like, oh, okay, maybe not quite our kind of vibe, but we can really like the fact that they have kind of got loyalty down really well. They've got referrals down really well. So we definitely have lots of kind of chats to them about that. One actually, which I, got turned on to on a kind of podcast who I thought were really good was Space Goods. So Space Goods, there are so many kind of supplement brands out there at the minute. And there's so many kind of doing amazing stuff. Space Goods is essentially a supplement brand, but it's kind of anchored in this idea of sort of additives from kind of mushrooms, and cordyceps mushrooms and all these kind of other additives. The one thing I really like about them, well, firstly, I think they're doing about 20 million in sales selling mushroom powder. And I'm like, we're doing like 45 million selling like a home cleaning detergent. These guys are doing really well. And the thing I just really liked about it is that their onboarding flow was just a real inspiration because once you've kind of signed up and you're kind of taking one of the kind of products from them, they don't send you anything that's to do with here's how you manage your account or here's how when your next order is coming and that kind of stuff. They are very, very focused on making you see the benefits of the product. So the emails and the follow-ups that they're showing you are really sort of saying, here's how you're going to feel on day one. Here's how you're going to feel after
Yeah, so
5 days.
this sort of messaging and brand promise is continuing, even though you're already a customer. So they're reaffirming, all of this. So whereas I think a lot of brands, right, you're now a customer, when are you going to order your next one? Or
Exactly.
refer a friend or do whatever. Yeah.
And that's exactly it. It's that realization that the selling process hasn't stopped purely because I've gotten your credit card details and I've got your email and now I can email you all the time. It's like, no, I've still got to convince you and get you into a kind of habit. And there we're sort of really, really interesting.
That's
The-
good.
yeah, the other one I'd add, given that you're based up in Leeds, and I like these guys a lot, Pure Pet Foods, who are a kind of Leeds-based kind of pet subscription brand. They do very well as well. We've kind of learned a lot from them about, how they kind of run their advertising. It's obviously pet food's a very personalized kind of service, and so you're
Yeah.
really sales process there is really talking to you about you and your dog and what you kind of want your outcome to be or what the kind of problem you're trying to solve is. So yeah, they're very strong as well and they're doing very well. So yeah, they just run a kind of really tight ship as well. We like them.
So we're coming to the end of the podcast, and at the end, I'm not going to do the traditional "here's 10 quick-fire questions." Don't worry. But I suppose, where's the vision? Where's the future? When are you going to get to your 100 million? I'm not going to share this with the board. Don't worry, we're not going to hold you to account. And I suppose, how much is left in the UK, or are you going to have to go international faster?
Yeah, so answer the second question first. There's a lot of growth left in the UK. As I say, so much of this category is bought in sort of supermarkets. So there's both growth from us from being present in supermarkets, but also growth from sort of convincing people that something as regular as their sort of home cleaning supplies doesn't need to be something that they're picking up in their kind of weekly shop. It is something that you can sort of move into kind of subscription world. Where does that kind of growth come from? I think pretty much as we've talked through in this sort of in this discussion is people, we've got more and more customers who it's not just about, oh, I want to try a new different type of laundry detergent. It's more about, I want to make a fundamental change in my life whereby I'm removing all that kind of plastic from my life. So as I empty my bin on the night before bin day, when you look in your thing, it's how many big plastic bottles are there, be they hand wash bottles or spray bottles or shampoo or shower gel, all that kind of stuff. You kind of look at it and kind of go, there's got to be a better way of doing this. I sometimes describe to people as like, how could we be the gusto for kind of non-food? So how could it be one regular delivery that really kind of knows what your preferences are, but it's supplying across all those kind of products, starting really with kind of home cleaning. So there's loads more kind of home cleaning categories that we're not in at the minute that we can sort of expand to. And in that world that we've got people taking lots of subscriptions, they're getting one box on a kind of regular basis as opposed to all the subscriptions coming individually, then essentially once you're sending them that box, it's a lot easier to get them to take another subscription to something else and sort of change their habits and have an impact on another product that they're sort of having. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we sort of see it going. So I think there's a lot of growth in the UK before we think about going back into international.
Okay. And if people want to sign up and buy some Smol, where do they need to go?
Yeah, just go to smol.com. As I said, the free trial offer is a good one. It's available for anyone kind of on the website. There's no need to kind of go anywhere else on it. We also do a kind of bundle of 4 products, which is essentially is going to be £5 plus £1.99 shipping, so sort of £6.99 total. It allows you to kind of try for the 4 of the products and sort of get that kind of moving as a subscription, and that's a really great way to get involved as well.
Yeah. So, well, I've really enjoyed our conversation, Neil. I'm still hugely impressed you only put your dishwasher on once a day. That was amazing. So thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to today's Leaders on Shopify podcast, which was sponsored by Ask Bosco AI Analytics and Insights. To find out more about Ask Bosco, visit askbosco.io or search Ask Bosco in the Shopify App Store.